Now, again, spots of rain just prior to the start of this second race. Let's hope the weather just holds off long enough for them to get a good, clean shot at it. And here's how they will line up. Stephen Johnson, who qualified second, is now off the pole from Paul Morris. Ford and Holden on the front row. Then Ambrose and Ingle. It's another split second row. Then we've got Radisich and Bright, David Bernard and Steve Ellery up to 8th.
You look down the right-hand side of the Shell Helix scoreboard, you see those yellow boxes. That shows where they qualified. And, of course, the finishing order from race 1 determines the starting grid for race 2. So you get an idea of how these guys will be going throughout the day. Mark Larkham, as a result of that tangle in the first turn, he ended up finishing 16th.
Murphy, who was a bit of a loser in the first race, he qualified 12th, dropped down to 17th with lots of contact and difficulty with his old teammate there, Brad Jones, then Glenn Seaton, Longhurst, McLean, Paul Wheel, Anthony Tratt and Dougal McDougall, 24.
Mark Scaife, there's a result. Look, qualified number 1, finished 25. So we've still got a lot of work to do. Thomas Mazzira alongside Matt White, Paul Romano, Todd Kelly, Jason Richards, Dean Canto and John Bow, qualified 18th. He's gone to the back of the grid. With an
engine failure, yeah. And can you believe this? He came into the pits coasting and then was pinged for exceeding the pit lane speed limit.
I suppose his 40k speed limit wouldn't work without the engine working, would it?
No, so for John, the tide is out at the moment, which is very frustrating. Cars coming up onto the start-finish line. Barry, you've just come back from the UK. The temperature's about right here for that.
In actual fact, the UK is 33 degrees. Seriously.
Not.
Well, it's 33 one day and about 15 the next.
And they told me you flogged him on the bike there last weekend.
Yeah, one, yeah. For an old
legend.
Boy. Flew off the young guys.
Here's our Shell champion, reigning champion and championship leader. He's got a lot of work to do from back there, position 24. Craig Lowndes carrying the Ford in-car camera.
Well, if Mark can come from the back and win this one, then we'll call him Houdini.
Well, he is very, very good through the traffic.
Yeah,
he's
amazing.
24th, and he's just virtually cut a groove, his own groove around this place. They test here a lot. So I'd be very surprised if he wasn't back inside the top 10 by the time today's racing's over. Big pack of V8s on the grid, 32 cars in all.
Set for a start. Great jump from Paul Morris, leaves Stephen Johnson standing still. Ingle goes with him. Johnson's getting absolutely swamped by the pack. His teammate Radisich is up alongside now. He'll have dropped 4 or 5 spots by the time they get down to turn 1. It's Morris leading, then the Castrol car.
What an unbelievable turnaround. Look at Johnson. He's actually behind his teammate Radisich. The Rat got a better start than Johnson, so he's been absolutely swamped as they punch out of turn 2. Morris in control. Look at the two Shell Fords. They're almost running side by side as they sort themselves out over Mount Jane, beginning of race 2.
They're nearly standing still at turn 3 there before they come up over the top of the hill. Frustrating and difficult for the quicker guys right at the very back.
And Paul Morris was punching out some competitive lap times in race 1. This is interesting. Could he get his first V8 supercar victory here? Look at how much they're pushing and shoving. Jason Bargwanna, Stephen Ellery still elbow to elbow. Larkham tries to take advantage as well. So it just goes to show how critical it is on this opening lap to try and get some track position.
Yeah, Paul Morris was saying that his car at the end of the race was really good. You know, the tyres weren't too bad at all. So
the car's working very well. As they thunder down the main straight for the first time, it's Morris, Russell Ingle in close behind. Then it's Jason Bright, Marcus Ambrose, Paul Radisich. Problems here for Dougal McDougall.
Remember at the top of the show we talked about what happens on the standing lap. Well, Morris recorded a 63.4. He was obviously the first man across the line as we go on board here with Mark. And look, he's up behind Wheel, I believe. And they're all bouncing and getting stuck into it. That's Brad Jones there as well. Look down to guys, for example, Anthony Tratt, 25th. He recorded a 1:14.8. So it's 11 seconds slower in the first lap alone. When you give away that, it's a real difficulty to get it back.
Yeah, Scape's got his work cut out for him. He's already up inside the top 20. So there's plenty of pushing and shoving. He's got a lot of traffic to work through. But he's got plenty of speed on board that Holden Racing Team Commodore, fastest car in qualifying. Interesting to see how he progresses. But look at that terrible start from Junior Johnson. He absolutely blitzed Mark Scaife off the line in race 1, and he absolutely stuffed it up in race 2.
Be interesting to see how Ambrose's car goes in this one, because the Stone brothers have changed a lot of the geometry for this race.
Because teams are only permitted to test at 2 tracks in their own state, for some of the interstate teams in particular who only come here once a year, they don't get much of a run-up. You get 30 minutes of practice, then another 45, then you go and qualify, then if you're lucky enough you're in the shootout. brief warm-up this morning and then you go racing. So only now, for some people, will you be getting a real handle on the car and starting to make the kinds of positive changes you want to really get it dialed in.
Do you know we were saying that Ambrose's car sounds really great? He's got both the pipes out the left-hand side of it, and that's why Ross Stone was saying that the thing looks so rich, because it's pumping all the black smoke out one side of the car.
Well, problems here for Todd Kelly. Did a brilliant job in pre-qualifying yesterday, had plenty of speed, but now he's found himself back in the pack, and this is the price you pay. Body damage, the team working frantically to try and get that front guard away from the wheel.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a 0-0 weekend for Todd Kelly. Panel damage in the front end after contact in lap 1 has pushed it onto the tyre, and also he flat spotted the right front, but now he's back out in this race.
Paul Morris, meanwhile, a 56.69 for Morris. That's the quickest time of the race so far. Boy, he's got some speed on board this car. He's just pumped out the lead, 0.7. It's almost out to a second now over Russell Ingall.
Scafie made up 3 places that lap.
Works the wheel over the curb, very physical. Chop the circuit down as short as he can. They did get a warning from driving standards observer Colin Bond in the drivers' meeting. He won't tolerate too much curb hopping, so Paul's going to have to watch that. Oh, look at the Valvoline car limping down pit lane.
There's a lot of damage on the front of that.
Paul Morris, what's the gap? 0.92, so it's almost a second now. Impressive speed from the Big Kev racer so far. Then it's Jason Bright in third. Look at this attack under brakes by Radisich. Just ducks to the right of the Pertec Ford. Very difficult place to pass down there, Neil. It looks so bumpy under brakes.
That's the problem. It's not just a question of being brave and getting down there with a lot of brake pedal pressure, but you've actually got to get the car to ride the bumps and then change its direction at the end of it, so you're prone to locking the inside front. It's certainly a demanding little bit of road. It's a relatively simple circuit to look at in its layout, but it's quite difficult to set up for and get the car working. You can see that sort of shiny looking surface there, the western sunshine there up the end of the back straight. It shows you very easy to burst these 600 horsepower engines into piles of wheel spin, particularly coming off here. You feed it on very gently.
So Paul Morris's best time of the race so far, a 56.69. He's only 2/100ths off Junior's best lap from race 1, so he's got plenty of speed. And he's still the lead's pretty static though, 0.7 of a second in front of Russell Ingall in second place.
See the big white scuffs on the road back there in the initial part of the braking area? That's where the front air dam makes contact with the road when they first apply the brakes. If the ride height's too low, they're actually striking the ground there. And when you're behind another car and it does that, you see this big white cloud comes up from the front of the car.
This battle here between Radisich, he's got a little bit of a gap over his teammate Stephen Johnson, who has to be consistent here to keep those points rolling in.
You talk about the hoodoo that's over this Valvoline Cummins team. Jason Bargwanna had to stop right then. He rolled a tyre off the front rim after contact again in the early stages of this race. Boy, this Calder Park certainly does produce some close and physical racing.
Sure does. Here's another man who's done a couple of rounds. Look at the damage here. Front left of the car leaning down.
Scafie up to 17.
Had a shocking season so far, the Aussie male team. Let's have a look on the Shell Helix replay. Well, something's already happened here.
Is that a result of some form of contact, or is it breakage? Sending off huge smoke signals. Everybody behind, you can read that as finding trouble.
It's amazing the different fortunes between this man, Paul Morris, and Brad Jones. Both refugees from the Super Touring class. And look at the difference in performance after 7 rounds into the championship. Paul Morris here is leading the best cars in the country. Poor old Brad's still struggling on with the Aussie male Ford.
Ingall's catching him. He's now down to 0.6 on the last lap, and you can see that he's starting to sweat on him.
57.11 to 57.03. So time's just split by hundredths of a second. Ingall just starting to close the gap. It's looking menacing here. Jason Bright still in third, 2.3 seconds behind Russell Ingall. So there's a battle for the lead. It's coming down to those two.
Bright has definitely won the handbook titled How to Win a Championship.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he's just there. You know, he really hasn't, other than perhaps Adelaide, you know, he hasn't had real blinding, outstanding pace at every event, but he's there all the time, and that's what you've got to do.
That's what he said when he was up at Hidden Valley. He said, I've watched plenty of other people win this championship. This is how you do it. You don't necessarily have to win races. You just got to be there all the time.
Stephen Johnson will be frustrated in 6th after being the top man at the drop of the clutch. He just got swallowed, and he's lurking now doing 57.3s, which is exactly the same time being recorded by Morris. Ingle, incidentally, was 0.3 faster on the last lap, so that suggests his tyres might be in slightly better nick. There's Brad.
Fastest man on the track at the moment is Greg Murphy, 56.69.
He's going to email his answer to Grant, I think, by the look of it.
What a rotten weekend for those guys. Here we are, it's the battle for the lead. You're on board with Russell Ingle, 270 kilometres an hour on the approach to turn 1, hard into the brakes, really bury the nose into the bitumen there over the bumps, and look how much ground he makes up.
That's because Paul was guarded his ground on the inside, and Russell had a much quicker line into it.
Fully defensive. He was right down the white line.
Brad Jones, we talk about how it has to be elbows out here at Calder Park. Is that what has brought you in and out of this race?
Basically, yeah. On the first lap, I felt I was in front of Rodney, and he pushed me over the flip-flop at the back there, and it's broken the bottom of the shock absorber. So really, we're flogging a dead horse a bit. It's a pity, really, because the Aussie Mail car's been going okay, and we've been slightly moving up. But really, that first lap in that melee, anything can happen.
Hard luck, Brad.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, he's heard that plenty of times, hasn't he? Hard luck, Brad. He's probably get $1 for every time someone said that to him this year. Be a wealthy man. It has not been a good season. Oh, look at this. Just plenty of pressure from Ingle. It really does close right up on the big Kev car through turn 1. Just doesn't quite have enough punch out of that final turn onto the pit straight to be able to make a move.
It looks like Russell's a little stronger under brakes than in the initial turn in, but Paul's got pretty reasonable speed coming off the corners, so it's kind of it's two cars with different traits in them at the moment.
But the drive he gets out of that final turn onto the main straight is the critical one. Just needs 1 or 2 car lengths, 1 or 2 metres on Ingle.
Don't forget, Russell Ingle is our ambassador for DreamDrive.tv 2001, and if you'd like more details on the competition, then check it out on the web, DreamDrive.tv. Play the V8 supercar racing game and try your hand at it. 32 blokes out there having a go at the moment.
Yeah, Russell really needs a little bit more speed coming off that final turn to be able to pounce on Morris. He's very strong under brakes, but he just doesn't quite have track position.
Look at Scaife
and Lownsy, yeah.
Well, he's been making some pretty good progress so far. He's up to 16th, Scaife. Lowndes is in 15th, so this is just an indication of how much speed he's got on board this car. He's obviously driving it very cleverly as well to manage to survive as he picks his way through the traffic. Door to door with Lowndes, but he's beautifully positioned on the inside. Takes another spot, so Mark Scaife.
How about that?
Mark Scaife is now into the top 15.
Three in one go.
Yeah.
Oh, he got out of the throttle there because that's a road to nowhere. There's barely width for one car there. I was actually held my breath, wondered what was going to happen because all those guys are hard chargers, and by gee, that would have been one big mess if that had all come unglued.
Well, I said after race 1, do not take your eyes off Mark Scaife. He has an incredible ability to fight his way back from adversity. He's done it over time and time again, and he's doing it once again here at Calder. Look at how much speed he's got.
Look at Lowndes and vlog.
He just did an absolute short back and sides on that guy. Look at the amount of track he's opened up on them in the space of half a lap. Absolutely flying in the Holden Racing Team Commodore, a 56.87, his quickest time so far. He got held up that time around, but look at the amount of track.
Outside of Bernard, that would be a major.
I wouldn't want to be out there, I don't think, Mark.
Look at the amount of track position. He's making up incredible speed.
The Marble Fairies put plenty of dirt and rubbish on the outside of the road down there, and that's not a good place to be. Bad sportsmanship flag was just shown to Morris on the previous lap, car number 29. That's a warning because they feel as though he's driving down the inside of the road and not permitting quicker guys to get a clean run on him. If he persists, he will get a black flag, and that'll be a stop-go penalty.
I was going to say he's never going to manage it for the next 7 laps. That's what we've got left to run.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing again, Baz, is what we saw at Barbagallo. The car just starting to fade in race trim. He's done a 59 neat. He's almost up to the 62nd lap time now, so that was a slow lap for Morris, the previous one.
There must have been traffic or a mistake involved in all that. He just punched a 7.8 on the last lap, which is 0.3 better than Ingle. If I were Paul at the moment, I'd just go back to the race line and concentrate on absolutely getting 101% out of the car. And if someone does have the pace and they can outbrake you or outmaneuver, you're just going to have to yield. The ruling is, the race director doesn't mind if you're defensive in the dying moments of the race, but he won't cop it when you're in the half or 2/3 distance.
The problem is, though, when you're going down the inside, when you turn it, you've got to make it a much tighter corner, haven't you? And it's going to wear the...
Well, when you're defensive, it tends to make you slow. I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
his lap times closely though, because Ingles all over the back of the car, just at the critical point where he wants to overtake. He just hasn't got quite enough speed at the end of the main straight.
It's a summer's day in the cockpit of the Gibson Motorsport car. It's 34 there, it'd be the only 34-degree thing around here. And air temperature is 16, but that doesn't tell the whole story, because with the Victorian chill factor in the air here, I reckon it's about 0.
Very, very cold day at Calder, as we had experienced over the years down here. Morris still in control. Ingle ducks to the outside, so it's Morris, Ingle, nothing in that. Jason Bright, Paul Radisich closing the gap. Ambrose in there too.
So what's the next stage then, Neil, if they've shown the bad sportsmanship flag and he's still on the inside? What do they do next?
Black flag.
Yeah.
But I mean, just on the last couple of laps, I mean, Paul's smart enough to know that once he's seen it, you know, he's leading a race here. If he plays his cards right, you can be defensive without being too aggressive. You just put yourself in a position where you sneak 6 inches here and another 6 there, and for the other bloke, it's make your own arrangements. But if you look very obviously defensive, they'll hang you. These things are pretty wide, so it's not that difficult to actually hold somebody up, provided you're intelligent about it. Well, we've got the Kart World Series on tomorrow. It's up at Toronto, Canada. Tomorrow night after Sports Tonight, check your local guides for times. I can tell you the two Penskes are on the front row of the grid as we go on board with Russell Ingall.
Well, Paul's car is fading. It's certainly holding pretty good speed at the moment.
And the next time out for V8 Supercars, round 8 of the championship, the slightly revamped Oran Park Raceway west of Sydney, where there's a new pit lane complex, which I believe is fantastic. We're looking forward to coming up to Sydney again in a couple of weeks for the ongoing battle in this series.
Just been watching, he did a 58.1, after he did a 57, he's done a 58.3, so he's not going too slowly, but you can see Ingle is all over the back of him. You suspect Russell could go quicker if he could get past.
Oh, the traffic's a bit of a godsend there for Paul, because it allowed him to drive down the inside legally. Come on. Down the inside of it.
Where Paul is strong is here. Just the drive of this car out of this corner.
Yeah, really.
Even if his tyres are fading. Look at that.
Well, you can actually hear Russell short shifting there from second to third. He pulled the gear pretty early, and that tends to suggest that his rear tyres won't take too much of a popping. If you superheat them and you start to wheel spin too much, your tyres will just take away all the grip that you need to get the job done, and you'll drift back into time. So to look at the pressure building, third and fourth, Radisich is right on Bright. You just sense here that something could happen.
58.9, so once again the traffic just slowed Paul down a little bit. When he's got a bit of clear road in front of him, he seems to be hovering around the high 57s, low 58s. Everyone's going with him. Look at the traffic behind the big Kev car.
Yeah, as you say, the run-on to the start and finish straight is where he's making all the ground, isn't it?
Because they're all over the back of him around the other part of the circuit. But when he gets onto the straight, he's just got enough punch to hold him in a straight line.
Bargwanna mixed in there as well in car 35. He's a lap down.
Watch this here. Just this drive out of this final turn. It's so critical to your terminal speed. When he gets the thing pointed straight, he just ekes out a little metre or two.
Some of it's also just the concertina effect that, you know, that's what race cars look like. Now Russell's got a better run this time. Gee, Paul's defensive. You want to be careful, because they'll trot that flag out.
Well, he's already had a warning.
We are into the closing stages of the race. It might be deemed okay at this point, and this is the hard part. Where are the edges in the rules? You know, where are the definitive lines? It's very, very difficult for both officials and for drivers to make that determination.
58.67 last time around.
So the thing is, for Russell, he's not holding Russell up, obviously, really, is he, at the end of the day?
No.
Just probably...
well, when I say that, it's not as if Russell is all over the back of him the whole time. It's
good pressure driving from Paul Morris. He's just got maximum pressure here.
If anything, he's got a little margin now.
Yeah. That's excellent the way it comes out of that corner. See how much, almost a couple of car lengths. Scape up to 11th now. So we forecast he'd probably drop into the top 10 by the time race 2 was over. He's almost done it. Hard under brakes for the final turn. Paul Morris, Russell Ingall, Jason Bright, Paul Radisich. Bargwanna is a lapped car there. You saw him come into the pits with that damage. Marcus Ambrose is the next in the queue.
On board with Greg Murphy. Shell Helix Replay tells us what?
well,
tells us that
round.
Greg's gone round. Was he helped, or did he do it on his own? Oh, there was something blue. Yeah. Was he the or the E? There was something blue behind him. I think I didn't pick up which one it was, but...
amazing effort by Paul Morris. He's still done a 58.1. So when he gets a clear bit of track ahead of him, he's maintaining very consistent pace. We thought he may have been fading toward the middle laps of that race, but doesn't look like it. Car's going very, very well, 58.15.
The other thing that tends to happen here with now 1 lap to go is that if you just try that little bit harder and ask your rear tyres to do that bit more, they can really go away here quickly, and that may have happened to Ingle and Bright in the last lap. So less than 2 kilometres to run to conclude this second race. Morris in the box seat.
Tander wasn't giving up, was he?
Morris, Ingle, Bright, Radisich, Ambrose. Stephen Johnson still in 6th. He hasn't been able to move out of that position. Stephen Richards and Garth Tander fighting over 7th place. Stephen Ellery in 9th, McConville 10th. So another consistent performance from the Lansvale racing team. But this has been an amazing effort by Paul Morris. This will be his first ever V8 supercar victory. He's done it against the best in the country. What an amazing performance by the Queensland team. One more turn. Russell Ingle has tried hard. He's not been able to overcome Paul Morris.
So Morris takes the win, race 2. Tiny margin of 0.3 at the end of it there. Ingle for 2nd, Bright 3rd, then Radisich, Ambrose, Stephen Johnson, Stephen Richards, Garth Tander, Stephen Ellery, Cameron McConville, Mark Scaife, good performance up to 11th, not a bad performance. Then Larry Perkins, Mark Larkham, Greg Murphy, Craig Lowndes, David Bernard, Rodney Forbes, John Bow off the back, Paul Wheel and Tony Longhurst is the top 20.
Well, that's got to be one of the most extraordinary turnarounds in V8 Supercar. Look at Paul Morris's qualifying performances from early in the year. 19th, 40th, 20th, 19th, and then all of a sudden, he's been right in the zone. Look at that. First V8 Supercar victory for Paul Morris, Russell Ingle 2nd, Jason Bright was 3rd, then look at all those forwards. Paul Radisich, Marcus Ambrose, Stephen Johnson 6th, Stephen Richards 7th, and Garth Tander in 8th.
Stephen Ellery, the next man in the queue from McConville. Scaife up for important points in 11th. Perkins, Larkham, Murphy in the wars, then Lowndes and Bernard.
Rodney Forbes, John Bow, Paul Wheel, Tony Longhurst.
Well, Paul Morris, you're a multiple 2-litre touring car champion, and now you've transferred that speed to the V8 to take your first race victory. Well done.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Grant. My car was really good. The guys are really starting to get a handle on it, and I'm driving it pretty well, and it's starting to pay off.
I suppose this Calder circuit, it's much easier to control the race from the front, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. It's hard to pass, and, you just have to keep a tight line, and you can keep them back. But, we had the car speed as well, so it wasn't all defensive.
Now, we're seeing more consistent speed each round that you go to. Is there much development you're putting in, much hard work putting into this car?
There is, and, this is our first year with this car. Last year we had the VS, and we built a new car, which we hope to debut at Oran Park, and hopefully we can get that a bit quicker as well.
And tyres for race 3?
Well, we've used both sets so far. We'll just take the best of what we've got and see what happens.
Congratulations, Paul Morris.
Thanks, mate.
And the full race score on the Shell Helix scoreboard from race number 2. And it was tight at the top, particularly for Stephen Johnson, who started from pole but drifted back to 6th and couldn't make ground. Great charge from Mark Scaife, up from 25th to 11th and netting valuable points along the way. David Bernard, he was 7th, dropped down to 16th. And John Bow in the wars in race 1 up to 18th, and he grabbed some points as well.